Today on the Ford Shop Yard, I'm going to show you why you should never let your car's fuel gauge get onto E. Now this here is a 2001 Ford Expedition with a 5.4 Triton V8 in it. It's got 240,000 miles on it. Still runs like a clock. Okay, as you can see, my fuel gauge here, it's just under the 3/4 mark on the gauge. Now, it's always a good idea, once it gets to a quarter, which is right about where my middle finger is, that's a quarter of a tank. Don't let it get any lower than that. Don't let it get onto E, because if you run out and you just keep cranking and cranking and cranking, what you're doing is the pump is sucking air. The pump is in your gas tank. The fuel pump is sucking air, and that's going to burn out the bearings. Because what happens is the gasoline lubricates the bearings inside your fuel pump. So you never want to let it get down to E, and then once it runs out, keep cranking. Most mechanics charge over $1,000 just to change a simple fuel pump. Now, this fuel pump here, the fuel pump in my truck here, I just replaced it about soon be 2 years ago. And it had about 200,000 miles, 220,000 miles on it then. And that's why the reason it went out is because the person that used it all the time, mainly being my brother, he would never put any gas in it. He'd always put, $2 or $3, $4 or $5 in it, and it would never get above E. It would always stay on pretty much E. And that was like 2 or 3 years ago. And so one day I went to the store, filled it up, and didn't cut it off. I drove it home, cut it off. It wouldn't crank back up when I went back to try to crank it. So I said, I don't know what it could be. And we kept cranking and cranking and cranking. It wouldn't do anything. So I went and got some starter fluid and put some down the intake. Hit the key and it fired right up. So right then I knew it was the fuel pump. I went to my local auto parts store, spent about $65, $70 for a brand new pump and a brand new filter. Dropped the gas tank, put the new fuel pump in, and the new fuel filter. Hadn't had any problems since. That was like about 20,000 miles ago. And now since I changed that fuel pump, I never let it get below the quarter mark. Once it gets to a quarter, I pretend a quarter tank is E, and I always stop and fill it up then. Always pretend a quarter tank is E, unless you want to spend over $1,000 on a new fuel pump. Thank you, guys.